Okay, quick music disclaimer here. I do not own the rights to this music, which belongs to the rightful owner, who is the intoxicating mind of Dr. Frankenstein. So he made my intro and my outro, and I hope you guys enjoy. Check them out on Spotify and YouTube, and no copyright infringement is intended. Have a good day.
A clear choice of good versus evil, of right versus wrong.
Twisted Tales.
If you like paranormal, true crime, cryptids, or anything else weird, check out the Ouch Was That a Ghost podcast brought to you by your host Liz. You can find Ouch Was That a Ghost on Spotify, Apple, or any other audio platform. New episodes drop every Thursday.
Welcome back to Twisted Tales, folks. Hope you're all well. Now, my next case, we're going to talk about some tales of parents who killed their children. Now, I had a few articles that people sent me, and I guess I'll start off with this one. Now, this next tale, it's going to be about a child named Dante Joseph Diven. So he was born January 9th, 2012, and he passed away on August 3rd, 2014. He was the son of Joseph L. Diven II and Ellen Brittany Allen. Now, he was born in Durham County, North Carolina. So the city of Durham kind of began as like a railroad station and settlement. It's actually named for Dr. Bartlett Durham. And the county was formed back in April 17th of 1881. So Durham's home to like Duke University, North Carolina Central University, and several other historical sites, and it actually has a population of over 330,000. The whole thing began July 30th, 2014. Now, this is when paramedics and deputies were called to 145 Spruce Court. This is up in Timberlake community, I guess. Now, there was a child in cardiac arrest. They found the boy, his mother, and her boyfriend at a nearby gas station. Now, investigators thought that this whole thing, it didn't really sound right from the get-go, because the mother had took the kid from the residence and just met up at a convenience store instead of waiting for the fucking ambulance and everything to come, right? The boy was taken to Duke University Hospital, and he was placed on life support. But, unfortunately, he never regained consciousness, and he died August 3rd, 2014, up in Roxborough, North Carolina. Investigators said that there was evidence that the child was burned with a cigarette at least 3 times. Prosecutors say that they expect to file more charges when the results of the autopsy come back. And it's a little known fact here that she had 2 previous kids that were actually taken away from her by social services. So, this is like a whole ongoing thing, I guess. Now, social services said that we've been working with sheriffs and they've been involved and are trying to find the details of it all. So according to the report, Diven died following cardiorespiratory arrest due to bupropion intoxication. So this was the drug that was found in his system. Now, this drug was patented back in 1965, and it was approved for medical use in the United States in 1981. Now, it's a known brand of Subutex. This is an opiate used to treat opioid use disorder, also like acute pain and chronic pain, shit like that. This can be used under the tongue, in the cheek, or by injection. The drug has an onset of action within 30 minutes, so it really doesn't take long for it to kick in and feel the effects. This is a drug that should not be present in a child's blood. Now, side effects of the drug may include respiratory depression, kind of means like decreased breathing, sleepiness, low blood pressure, allergic reaction, constipation, there's a fun one, and opiate addiction, not a fun one. So this was the pain medication that was found in the little boy's system when he died. The actual amount in his system when he went into cardiac arrest could not be determined since the blood sample provided for analysis was not the initial sample taken when the boy arrived at the hospital. It was unknown how the 2-year-old had obtained the medication, whether it was given to him by another person, or whether he found it and ingested it himself. Following the boy's death, the 23-year-old mother Ellen Brittany Green Allen was charged with intentional child abuse, causing serious physical injury after investigators saw those cigarette burns that we mentioned earlier. And because of all this, she now faces first-degree murder charges. And the family used Clements Funeral and Cremation Services, Inc. up on Broad Street up in Durham there. Now, what we mentioned in that case was filicide, and this is actually the deliberate act of a parent killing their own child.
New at noon, the Person County mother who was accused of extreme child abuse following her 2-year-old son's death last summer faces new charges. 23-year-old Ellen Green Allen is now charged with first-degree murder. Person County authorities released an autopsy today that showed Dante Diven had a significant amount of pain medication in his system when he died. He was taken to the hospital, but he never regained consciousness and died August 3rd. According to the report, he died following a cardiorespiratory arrest due to drug intoxication.
Happening now.
And next, we'll talk about a loving husband and father, Neil Jacobson. So as far as it goes, I guess, people say this guy was nothing but kind. He grew up to be a stockbroker up in Queens, up in New York City. And he met his wife, Frankie Solkoff, at his apartment building. Now, it turns out they lived in the same building, so they got to chatting and hanging out and stuff, and eventually they started dating, and later on, she became his wife. Now, as I read through the articles and everything here, it said the couple had an amazing relationship. They were just the best of friends, and it's a little known fact that she was also a stockbroker. Now, over time, they left the field here to start up a mortgage brokerage company. This is up in New Jersey in 1993. So they dipped out of the one they were in, so they left that company behind. They did their own thing, and they had 2 twin boys, Eric and Joshua. So, a little while later, the couple ended up moving to Florida back in 2007. This is just so they could be closer to Jacobson's parents, because they wanted to escape the cold winters as well. And Jacobson had a lot of fun things on the go too. He was on the board of the local Jewish Community Center. Nothing but up from there, right? So, I mean, like, he did things for his community. That's what I'm trying to get at. The couple lived it big here. They bought a house that was worth $760,000. It was a little bit of coin, right? Now, Frankie, she actually used the time here and everything, so she would use this to get kind of inspired to become a children's book author. She actually published her first book. This is Green Bean's Birthday Party back in December 2009. So, she had her little hobby and everything, right? So when they moved, it was just a shitty time, because it was around the time that the financial crisis had hit the country. And there were just a lot of people struggling at the time and everything. So, just a really bad time to move. But they ended up moving anyway. Now, shortly after making the trip here, Jacobson was actually diagnosed with vertigo and depression. This is in January of 2010. Now, he ended up making complaints, feeling dizzy not long after, like, Christmas. So soon, he was actually given some meds, kind of take the edge off. And he was prescribed to Xanax and Zoloft. Now, Xanax helps with, like, anxiety and panic disorders, shit like that. And this is also used in, like, the management of nausea in patients and, like, chemotherapy and stuff. And Zoloft actually works by inhibiting the reuptake of serotonin, meaning it blocks the reuptake process, so more serotonin is actually able to stay in the synapse for a little bit longer period, and this actually amplifies the communication of signals between the neurons to boost the mood and alleviate symptoms of anxiety and depression. Now, the long-term side effects of Zoloft, this can include like numbness, sexual problems, weight gain, reduced positive feelings, and or suicidal thoughts. And it takes anywhere from 4 to 6 weeks to actually feel the full effects of this medication. Now, it does offer like some mood changes that actually become very noticeable within the first week or two. And friends and family actually noticed his personality changed pretty quickly after being introduced to his new meds. So over time, this dude would just start like hallucinating and everything, right? Like just going nuts. And he just became wicked, anxious, and paranoid because he started having like sleeping problems along with all this too. And in this dude's house, he kept a Smith & Wesson 5-shot revolver and a box of Winchester .38 caliber bullets. And he left this up in his walk-in closet. I mean, obviously, he left it out of reach of the boys and everything. He also had 3 Bushmaster rifles that were locked in cases nearby. Now, Saturday, his boys would actually celebrate their upcoming 7th birthday. Jacobson climbed out of his bed around 6 a.m. that day. He stepped into his closet. And then Frankie, his wife of 19 years, was just sitting there watching him, kind of half asleep a little bit, right? And she says to him, "What are you doing in the closet?" He stepped out, turned, and he pointed the gun at her. "Honey, it's over. It's just over. There's no other way." And Frankie just replied, "I don't want to die. I don't want to die. I want to live." Then she kind of pleaded for her life, and then she said, "What about the boys?" To which he replied, "Frankie, we all have to go." Then, as soon as he got the words out of his mouth, she ended up lunging for the gun. Now, the couple fell to the floor, and then the whole struggle ended up knocking out Frankie's front tooth, and then he sliced her index finger in the process. Jacobson then shot her twice in the face, killing her, and this was around 6:30 a.m. Now, after this, he walked into Eric's room, and he was sound asleep under his little Thomas the Train engine blanket. Jacobson shot the child twice in the face. This actually caused a lot of blood spraying around. This went up to the ceiling, but Eric didn't die. He actually started gurgling on his blood. So Jacobson held a pillow over the boy's face and shot him twice more. And then he reloaded his gun, walked into the neighboring room. This is where Joshua was. Now he was cuddled up in his race car sheets. He headed into his room. The kid was laying there on his left side. Jacobson put a pillow over Joshua's right cheek and shot him twice in the face. Then he turned, he walked back to his bedroom, past his dead wife, into the couple's bathroom. Then he washed his family's splattered blood off his hands. Now after this, he grabbed the keys to his 2002 GMC Envoy, and then he went back to the children's room. And he said this, "Come on, hurry, get up." And he was kind of shaking them. "If you don't get up, I'm going to have to leave without you." And Eric and Joshua didn't wake up. He literally just killed them both moments ago, but he was that fucked on pills. He fucking totally forgot. He was totally just trying to wake them up. And this guy killed his kids just hours before their 7th birthday party was set to begin. After this, Jacobson stepped outside in the cool morning air, and then he had a bunch of meds on him, so he swallowed a bunch of old Vicodin tablets, along with the remainder of the Zoloft and the Xanax that he had been prescribed earlier. Now, Jacobson was arrested not long after driving away. Paramedics were actually called to the crash up on Delray Beach. So those meds kicked in pretty fast. He crashed his SUV in the intersection at US 441 and West Atlantic Avenue after passing out behind the wheel. When police arrived on the scene, he told deputies that he had killed his family. Now, the whole car was just totally damaged here. The wheels were pretty much all crooked, like he hit fucking hard. Now, the pills kicked in, and paramedics ended up finding him here, totally out cold. He was covered in blood, and even his shoes had blood spatter on them. And his hands had some skin peeling off from them. This is from hypothyroidism. This is a condition where the thyroid gland doesn't produce enough thyroid hormones. Now, in his pockets, they found some speed loaders and live rounds. So what a speed loader is, it allows you to reload quicker. It holds your bullets, and then you can kind of insert all of them in. And then by either like twisting a knob or like sometimes you can just like push the knob in and then it drops the bullets in the chamber all at once. So it's a little easier instead of loading one fucking chamber at a time. Now, it's a little known fact here that if he didn't pass out or overdose and crash or what have you, he would have ended up at his mother's house because he was actually on his way over to kill her. And this is directly after he killed his family. And the key to her home was found in his front seat, actually. They also found a suicide note on the floor of his car, blue duffel bag with some baseball gloves and other baseball gear in it. He actually had the Smith & Wesson gun on him. It was actually in the car. And it was fully loaded. And like the bullets were all bloody from like his bloody fingerprints and shit. Jacobson ended up rambling on to the police here that he sort of went off the deep end after his father died back in 2007. And he became a little bit despondent, meaning like in low spirits. He ended up pointing police into the direction of his home. And then he just said, "I just snapped." Now, after the crash, he ended up going to the hospital at the Delray Beach Medical Center. And then the deputies went to his house up on South Sea Court in Wellington. This is up in a gated community. So a gated community is like a group of houses that's surrounded by fences or walls. Now, they can be entered by people who live there. Now, the neighborhood's like a gated community that you can kind of drive up to. There's a gate. You either put in a password or there's like a keypad or something, or a security guard will let you in. Sometimes there's a phone number you call and then it just buzzes you in. Police got there and they found the bodies of his wife and 2 sons. Now, they found bullets on the closet floor. There was some ammo that was located on the closet shelves too. Winchester ammo. It was actually made in the USA. Now, they also found a 5-page suicide note in the closet. This is dated 3 days prior to the one that he had in his vehicle. And this offered like a inside look on how this dude's head was, like how his mind was at the time. So, I'll read you some of this suicide note here. It goes, "I could just not go on any longer. Everything in our lives has gotten so out of control. I love my family more than anything else in the world, and just could not handle what we are facing. Due to my poor judgment, I had put us in a position that we will lose everything we had built. I overindulged in the real estate boom. There's no way my family will be able to recover, and they are looking at being destitute. I cannot allow or live with this. I'm quickly dropping weight. I'm sliding farther down. I cannot sleep as the anxiety is eating me alive. I am embarrassed and ashamed of what I have done. And taking your own life is bad enough, but taking that of your own flesh and blood is an act that cannot be understood." And then Jacobson kind of like admitted in this whole letter that he forced his family to leave their comfortable life up in New Jersey and end up coming to Florida here to chase a life that he thought that they deserved. Now, he also wrote up like some letters here to the person who would find them, asking for a proper burial for the family, leaving a list of phone numbers of the family and some rabbis to call, kind of writing this as like if he would be dead as well. Didn't really work that way, did it? Now, Jacobson had estimated that they went from $2.2 million in equity to $2.3 million in debt in just over 5 years. It says, "At our ages, there's just no way to recoup what we had lost and be able to provide for our children." Jacobson's mortgage and real estate business was actually suffering too, and his finances were just crumbling at the time of the killings. Now, a few of his buddies had said that he was depressed over losing money and like bad investments and the lack of work and everything. And this kind of like set him off a little bit, I guess. Now, back to the letters here that he was writing. Now, it's kind of like a little fucking diary into his madness, I guess, right? And then he just wrote some shit about killing himself and stuff. But I mean, the guy couldn't even turn the gun on himself. I mean, like he did this to his family, shot them, but he couldn't fucking do it himself, considering he's alive and all, right? And that kind of sums up the whole notes, besides like the pages of like his failed real estate investments and shit, but suffocating debt and all that. But this whole turn of events just shocked the upmarket Florida village. I mean, like, fuck, there was nothing like this going on. Like, there's not many times where you would see like a millionaire just kill his family, right? And it's safe to say, like, Jacobson was widely hated by everybody, right? Like, his crime was one of the most brutal in Wellington's history. And almost everything that Jacobson had said was actually backed up by, like, outside sources and friends and relatives. Neil Jacobson pleaded guilty, and this actually spared him from a possible death penalty. And this was up in Palm Beach County courtroom. So, in exchange for the state not seeking a death penalty, he entered a guilty plea to 3 counts of first-degree murder with a firearm, and was sentenced to life in prison on each count, without the possibility of parole, for the murders of his wife and his twin boys. He's now asking doctors and like family and friends and all that if the crime could have been partially prompted by the prescribed medications. This guy was just going on in articles saying like, all I ever wanted was for the truth to be known, so that this horrible, horrible thing never happened to another family. And Neil's actually not the first person to blame a murderous rampage on a fucking medication. There's actually been a few cases. There's been a couple overseas and all that. And no U.S. court has actually reportedly ever found a drug manufacturer criminally liable for a patient's homicidal actions. And because of all this, medical experts are actually asking whether pharmaceutical companies and doctors should be held accountable if medication leads to murder. Now, the boys' elementary school actually planned to have some counselors and everything on hand to help the teachers and their friends deal with the grief of the kid's death. Now, an anonymous donor actually stepped up here too to actually pay for a gravestone for the Wellington mother and the children. A rabbi by the name of Daniel Krimsky actually performed the tombstone unveiling here. This is at the I.J. Morris at the Star of David Cemetery of Palm Beach Gardens. The donors actually wrote a whole check here to cover the cost of the tombstone for the family under the condition that their identity remained anonymous. So, wasn't that a nice little thing that they did? Horrible crime, but this guy's in jail. He's not going anywhere.
Now, there's a major courtroom twist for a man accused of shooting his wife and 2 twin sons as they slept.
Neil Jacobson reached a plea deal with the state. He changed his plea of not guilty to guilty of 3 counts of first-degree murder. Now, after killing his family, he tried to kill himself, in fact, even leaving behind a suicide note detailing why he did it. He said the reason was the family's mounting financial situation. Now he's going to spend the rest of his life behind bars. Neil Jacobson answered to the judge in this Palm Beach County courtroom today, admitting that he shot his wife Frankie and then shot their twin 7-year-old sons while they were asleep in their Wellington home back in 2010. But when it was the family's turn to speak in court, Neil held his head and never looked up.
There's not a day that goes by that I don't hear my sister saying, "Good morning, Sherry. Good morning, Sherry. What are you doing today? What'd you eat for breakfast today?" There's not going to be
Robin. How are you?
But they will never hear that cheerful hello again. And day by day, they say they're working through that hurt and overwhelming pain.
You can't get rid of this overwhelming pain, overwhelming grief by yourself. I got rid of the grief and was able to move on because I prayed to the Lord.
He took the best that God had really given him and destroyed it.
Both Robin and Sherry say they knew things weren't perfect in the Jacobson household, and they tried to help.
We did reach out for him, and together we can speak. And he had a family on both sides, many members.
Today they asked the judge for permission to see Neil in prison. The family says they want to make sure the man who took so much from them can find God and give back in some way.
Now next up, Isabel Martinez. She's a 33-year-old suburban Atlanta mother, and she was arrested in the stabbing death of her 4 children and their father. After all this shook down, she was actually held without bond at the Gwinnett County Jail for U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. Now, they found a fifth child with injuries. She actually survived. She was in serious but stable condition at a children's hospital up in Atlanta. So the children and their father were discovered shortly before 5 a.m. at a home near Loganville, Georgia. It's about 30 miles east of Atlanta. Now, the youngest of the children was 2 years old, and the oldest was 10 years old. Now, the male victim was identified as 33-year-old Martin Romero. Police say that they won't discuss the subject's motive throughout any of this. This is just a fucking horrendous crime. I mean, not only for the victims, but I mean, the extended family too. I mean, even the neighborhood police and everything too, like, dealing with all this, murders of kids. I mean, it's not easy to fucking go through either, right? And police actually said that we're hoping and praying that the remaining victim survives. So after her arrest, police ended up getting a search warrant. They got into the property and everything. And police ended up getting chatty with some relatives there. Now, one relative told them that once she had returned from a vacation, the mother had been like very depressed over the death of her father. There was a neighbor, Rafael Ramirez. He actually said the mother had been acting kind of bizarre and said that she was experiencing hallucinations. So she kind of went off the fucking deep end a bit. She obviously took the death of her father a little bit hard, and she was speaking to a pastor at a local church about the death of her father and all that too. Now, the family lived in a quiet community for about 3 or 4 months, and the family had some relatives in the area, shit like that. Now, during court, the mother was brought in, and when she was asked questions, she just sat there like, she smiled. She flashed a double thumbs up to the news cameras, shit like that. Like, this was during her first court appearance. And as the judge was like kind of rhyming off like the charges against her, which were 5 counts of malice murder, 5 counts of murder, and 6 counts of aggravated assault. Now, malice murder is like a criminal offense that involves the unlawful killing of a person with malice aforethought. Now, malice aforethought being the intent to cause someone serious bodily harm or death. And when she was read all this shit, Martinez just smiled and shook her head no, and then waved her finger at him. And the judge is just like, what the fuck? He advised her to not perform for the cameras. It kind of pissed him off, right? So he said, ma'am, I'm going to caution you to cut out the display for the cameras. It's not really a good idea, and probably not to your benefit. And when he informed her of her right to have an attorney, she said through a Spanish language interpreter that she doesn't want one, and then she later added that her attorney will always be the people and her faith. She said, we are all God's people, and God loves us all. Psychologists and others who study like cases of mothers that are accused of killing their children say this isn't as uncommon as people might believe. There are actually a lot of people that kill their fucking children, and it's terrible. Not a good thing at all. Now, in cases when mothers kill intentionally, there's often another influence. I mean, such as like some kind of mental health issue, postpartum depression, or maybe the loss of a close one. Something like that, right? Like, this girl kind of went off the deep end there after her father died. And even this girl's neighbors, like, they said there was nothing amiss. I mean, they had no clue anything was fucking off until the police were there, right? Police showed up, they're like, oh shit, what's going on here, right? The neighbors said that they actually moved into the community kind of recently there, and their children seemed happy. They were playing around with other kids in the neighborhood and stuff. Now, the 4 children that were killed was Isabella Martinez. She was 10. Dakota Romero, 7. Dylan Romero, 4. And Axel Romero, 2. So the way that this was done here is Martinez had stabbed the children as they slept inside the family home. Now, they lived up in Loganville. I believe this is up in Georgia. Now, Martin Romero, the father, actually tried to stop her, and Martinez just fucking stabbed him. Martinez was like not crying or screaming or anything, and she stabbed the family members, telling them one by one that they're going to the sky to meet Jesus. That was it. Martinez actually cut herself before calling 911. This is at 4:47 a.m. It was on July 6, 2017. Now, Martinez initially confessed to the killings, but then she changed things up and started to blame a family friend. Now, prosecutors declined to seek the death penalty against Martinez, citing her mental state because she's fucking all crazy and shit. Now, Martinez will be eligible for parole in about 30 years. And in addition to the 5 life sentences that the judge slapped on her, she actually got another 21 years slapped on. Martinez's case drew notoriety when she acted all erratically in court. Now, she said that she felt like a devil-like spirit kind of took her over during her family vacation to Savannah. Martin Romero's cousin ended up talking to investigators. Her name was Griselda. She told police the wife said she would bring back her father by any means possible, and she was waiting for a signal to do so. At the crime scene, Bibles were placed on top of Martin Romero and the children, and then they were all left together. Even though she killed her family, she told detectives that she loved her family with all her heart. And even in the 911 call here on the day of the attack when she called, she was going on rambling, saying that she thought that she and her family were going to the heavens. And even police tried to do a couple fucking interviews with her there, but they had to just end it because she was just too fucked. Mainly because Martinez began to have trouble staying in the present mentally. And a detective noted that she displayed a distinct change in her mental clarity from the beginning of the interview. And she's currently being held at an undisclosed mental health facility, and officials there will determine if she's ever fit to enter a general prison population. And the other girl that was in the hospital is actually happy, healthy, and she's actually under the care of a new loving family. So there was some good that came out of this case.
Mother is facing murder charges, accused of killing her 4 children and her husband. It's a heart-wrenching crime, to say the least, and neighbors say they recently noticed a change in the mother. Police are getting some answers.
They say Isabel Martinez is cooperating with the investigation. As you join us, Justin, the extended family is going into that home for the first time, where police say Martinez murdered her husband and 4 of her 5 children this morning. That 5th child is in the hospital. Family and friends throughout this neighborhood say they want to focus not on Martinez in the jail, but the kids used to play in this yard.
And as far as we know, everything was good.
But then police received a 911 call from inside this home early Thursday morning. Inside, they say they found 4 children ages 10 and under and the children's father all stabbed to death. Nearby, a 5th child was barely alive. The children's mother, Isabel Martinez, is now charged in the murders.
Talking to our staff this morning, these kids were fantastic kids and had tons to live for and a future ahead of them. So it's awful. It's devastating.
Jim Hollinsworth runs a local nonprofit that works with children in the neighborhood about 30 miles east of Atlanta near Loganville. He said the family had just moved into the area a few months ago.
They were really happy on the 4th of July. They were like any typical family.
Neighbors say the entire family was friendly. The kids played outside on this play set almost every day. But neighbors say they also noticed a change in Isabel the past few weeks after her father died in Mexico.
La señora era muy buena mamá.
This friend told me Isabel was a very good mother, but had become emotional at church the last few weeks. People were gathering at her house almost every night, praying.
She was a good mother, definitely. She was a good mother.
Martinez tonight is being held without bond. She also has an immigration hold on her.
All right, next up, Matthew Taylor Coleman. Now this guy's a father from Santa Barbara, California. Unexplainably, he left his Santa Barbara home with his 10-month-old daughter and 2-year-old son to Baja California, Mexico. Then he killed them with a fishing spear because he believed that his children were going to grow into some kind of monsters. Now, Matthew Coleman operated a surf school up in Santa Barbara, actually. So he's the founder of Love Water. this surfing school in Santa Barbara. So this place offers up private group lessons, surf therapy, and friends and coworkers describe this dude as like a champion surfer. He was actually a youth mentor, and he enjoyed spearfishing and sailing. When friends would shoot the shit with him, like just talk and conversate, like all they talked about was being dads and, some other general stuff, right? They always remembered that he was in a really cheerful mood all the time. So the place that he brought the kids, this was Baja California. It's a strip of land that emerges from the ocean. It's located south of California in the United States and is the northern gateway over to Mexico. And this place became a Mexican territory back in 1824. So there's always like a dormant or extinct volcano around the area here that kind of dominate the central and eastern parts of the state. So it's kind of wild. Now the state's beaches and the deep sea fishing are what kind of drives more tourism over this way. So all these cool things is kind of what drives these people up this way here, like because they have beaches, deep sea fishing and shit like that. The kids' bodies were found on a ranch in Rosarito, Mexico. This is on the Rancho del Descanso property. This is up in an agricultural community about 35 miles south of the U.S.-Mexico border. Now, a ranch worker had discovered the bodies after his dog had ran over to the area. The children's bodies were just covered in dozens of wounds. The weapon that was believed to be used was actually like a sharp wooden stake that they found near the scene here. But after a little bit of research and everything here, they found out it was a spear gun that was used. The man was seen on camera at the hotel Express Rosarito. This is about 20 miles south of the U.S.-Mexico border. He was seen here with the two kids. The man didn't have a reservation or anything like that, but he did pay for it one night only. Nobody knows why this guy did this. Like, he just went fucking nuts. And friends mentioned later on to police that Coleman around this time actually spent an increasing amount of time online looking at conspiracy theory websites and message boards, different shit like that. So he had taken off with the kids here, went up to this place. Nobody knew where this guy went. So his wife at that time had called Santa Barbara police and then told them that her family had planned to take a camping trip, but instead her husband took off in the van with the two kids, didn't tell anybody where they were going, and he wasn't answering his calls or his texts. At this time, Coleman's wife didn't believe her children were in any danger or anything like that. She didn't believe that Coleman would actually harm them or he'd eventually return home and everything, right? Everything would be cool. But the wife told police that they didn't have any problems or anything like that. They didn't have any arguments. She was just unable to reach him by phone. She was just kind of worried about him, right? Now, the officer suggested attempting to locate Coleman using the Find My iPhone app. This is a locator app. So they did the steps, and they saw that the phone was in Rosarito, Mexico, about 20 miles south of the border with San Diego County. This is at about 2:30 p.m. that day, so this was his last known location. And now the missing persons were now believed to be in Mexico, so the case was handed over to the FBI. The FBI had alerted authorities at the U.S.-Mexico border up in San Diego County to be on the lookout for Coleman and his two kids, so they kind of gave them a heads up on the situation. Now, because of the cameras and everything here, at 3 a.m., Coleman's actually seen leaving the hotel with his bag, his two kids. Now, 6:30 a.m., Coleman returns to the hotel alone. 7:30 a.m., Mexican authorities receive a report that two lifeless children have been located at Rancho El Descanso Ranch. So at 9:30 a.m., Coleman ended up checking out of his hotel alone. 1 p.m., Coleman arrived at the U.S.-Mexico border inspection point alone. He was the only one in his vehicle. Meanwhile, U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers had conducted a search of the van. A CBP officer had discovered what appeared to be blood on the van's registration paperwork, so they alerted the FBI. Now, Mexican authorities told the FBI that the bodies of 2 young children were found earlier that morning, and investigators believed the description matched those 2 of Coleman's children. So Coleman's pulled into this inspection room here. They read him his Miranda rights, and Coleman agreed to speak with authorities in a recorded interview. And during this interview, Coleman confessed to killing his children because his children were going to grow into monsters. Now, he described that he used a fishing spear to puncture the 2 children repeatedly, then he gave the location of their bodies, all of which coincided with evidence found at the scene. Now, Coleman also told authorities where the murder weapon was located, and Coleman had told them that he discarded the spearfishing gun in the creek, his bloody clothes in the trash bin, and this is at the side of the road up in Tijuana. Also, during his interview here, Coleman had referenced the Illuminati and everything, and was talking about conspiracy theories and shit like that. He told police that he was receiving visions and that his wife had possessed serpent DNA. Then he passed this on to his children. So he's kind of a little looped in the head there. And when police had asked whether he knew what he did was wrong, he told authorities that he did, but it was only the course of action he could take to save the world. He told police that his son was still alive after he shot him with a spearfishing gun, and that he continued to move the spear around. His daughter, he had fired the spearfishing gun into her heart. So what a spear gun is, it's a ranged underwater fishing device designed to launch a tethered spear or a harpoon that impales fish. They're also used in sports fishing and underwater target shooting and stuff like that. Basic components of this are a spear, a stock or barrel, and a handle or grip containing a trigger mechanism. And they're usually anywhere from 1.6 to 6.6 feet long. So back to it here. August 10th, 2021. Coleman is booked into jail. FBI agents had transported Coleman from the San Ysidro port of entry to the Santa Ana jail. And this is where he faced charges of foreign murder of U.S. nationals. Now, later that day, Mexican officials took this guy's advice. They went over, they recovered the murder weapon, the bloody clothes, and the baby blanket here from Tijuana. August 11th, 2021. Coleman appears in federal court at the U.S. District Courthouse in downtown L.A. So here he was detained by a federal judge, and this is where he was scheduled to be arraigned on charges for August 31st. His wife, Abby Coleman, is now living with members of her family. She actually goes by another name, and there's no record that she ever divorced her husband, and she's never actually spoken publicly about the murders. Now, some believe that he was radicalized within the church communities that he belonged to, because he was in a couple of those as well. And the family has also received $115,000 in donations made to a GoFundMe campaign. It's actually organized by her brother. So the money actually goes to cover the financial burdens that come along with the devastating loss for kids. Coleman also told police that he was actually motivated by an outlandish conspiracy theory that alien reptilian humanoids are actually masquerading as people to overthrow humanity. So he had a couple fun little statements. Now, he and his wife actually did look into conspiracy theories and different shit like that. I mean, who doesn't, right? It's good times. But he dove a little bit deeper into the abyss than her. Now, he became wicked paranoid, more so that people around him were actually involved in conspiracies and shit. And since this guy's been in jail, he's cut himself with a razor, he's dove headfirst into a toilet, he's punched himself in the face, and he slammed his head into the floor. So he's pretty kooky, I guess. Now, he's been under constant observation, and authorities have actually started to medicate him against his will, just to fucking calm him down and shit. And a prison physician has determined that the 40-year-old meets the criteria for unspecified schizophrenia spectrum and other psychiatric disorders. Prosecutors actually say he's unable to understand the charges that are against him. So now they're just waiting to see what comes of this dude's mental health before they see if he could be institutionalized. or if he goes to stay in a facility or back to jail. And lastly, on December 10th, 2024, the courts had filed an order of motion for extension of time to file response on the matter. So, this is like currently a little bit of an ongoing thing. So I guess they just needed more time here to figure out this guy's mental health before they make any decisions. But it's still a terrible crime he did. Shouldn't have fucking happened to begin with, but especially with kids, I mean, it's fucking terrible. But I'd like to thank you all for tuning into Twisted Tales tonight here, and this is just another tale that we had on the go here. Now next up, you're getting Ted Bundy, because we're pretty much done messing around with that. And we will record here in the next day or two. So I want to thank you guys very much for tuning back into the show. It's appreciative. Without you guys, it'd be fucking nothing, so you're all appreciated.
The California surfer dad, who cops say stabbed his 2 young children to death with a spearfishing gun, is now speaking out about his QAnon beliefs. 40-year-old Matthew Coleman appeared to have a perfect life. He often gushed about his wife Abby, toddler son Kaleo, and baby girl Roxy. But last August, he suddenly left home and took his children to Mexico, where he allegedly killed them after becoming convinced they carried serpent DNA and would grow into monsters. He said he was enlightened by QAnon and Illuminati conspiracy theories. But now Coleman says he's coming to terms with his delusions. In a jailhouse letter obtained by People magazine, Coleman writes, "I was deceiving myself. I know now that the reptile DNA thing was a delusion in my own mind. I made myself believe something that wasn't there."
I would say that Matthew Coleman has regrets, and he is expressing regrets when he's writing other people. These regrets are that he didn't spend more time with his family, that he spent so much time reading these message boards.
The People magazine writer says the dad is now trying to sort out his thoughts about the murders.
I don't know that he understands quite yet the extent and the depth of how delusional some of the things he was believing were, but he is getting there.
Matthew Coleman has pled not guilty.
Twisted Tales.